Good morning. Thank you for joining me, Sangha, and my wonderful co-host, Morton. It's our sixth episode, and we have Adam Hutchinson from Belmont Healthcare and Jasmeet Rai from RCH Homes.
I loved how you said Belmont with kind of a French accent there.
It isn't actually. It's sadly got a much more local and sadder story to where the name come from. But no. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the invitation. Come on.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us. It's an honour.
Adam, tell us a bit more then about Belmont.
Yeah. So as introduced, my name's Adam Hutchinson. I'm the MD of Belmont Healthcare. We're a provider of multiple forms of care, predominantly in the southeast, and starting to open portfolio in the West Midlands. We started off predominantly with care homes, now focused mainly on challenging behaviours and dementia, Parkinson's, schizophrenia, things like that in elderly over 65s. And we also have a provision of discharge from hospitals to home, and also do deliver home care, community and domiciliary. So that's my main exposure to the sector and what we do at Belmont.
Great. Do you cover such a multitude of services as well, Jasmeet?
Some of the similarities, but also some differences. So RCH Care Homes is probably a small/medium-sized provider down in the southeast and east of England, mostly focusing on care homes for elderly residents, so those over the age of 65, specialising in those living with dementia. But there's also a assisted living unit for young adults living with learning disabilities and a rehabilitative unit for people who have got acquired brain injuries, so strokes, car accidents, traumatic brain injuries of some sort. So some overlap, but also some differences.
Sounds like you're very much in the same situation and also, to some extent in the same space. What's it like being a provider in the current climate for the sector now? Who goes first?
I'll go if that's all right. I mean, it depends how you look at the sector. I mean, we've gone through a challenging period where we potentially a lot of the undersurface issues, should I say, came to the surface in terms of what the sector is reviewed as in the wider context of care, and I think it's probably given us a little bit of a push in getting sort of some public reaction to maybe learn a bit more about what social care is. So I mean, as a provider, I think as we're coming into this year, it's certainly there's more awareness around what we do, but the challenges now that we face is just around two key areas, mainly around people, because we're a people organisations. We have to, if we don't have people, we don't have within the organisation to deliver quality care. We can't deliver quality care, can we? Because there isn't people to do it. So we have a major issue around sourcing talent and having actual number of people available, but we're seeing that across, look at the airports over the last few weeks, look at hospitality. There's issues in terms of numbers of people across everything. So I suppose those are the challenges, and then obviously rising costs, and it's finding that work around in a way to bring a lot of different things together to enable us to grow effectively, to continue to deliver quality care. I think we're going to have a challenge with that if we can't get those two things right, and that comes with making sure that we're supported in terms of income, and supported in terms of people understanding what we do, which then income and the cost of care becomes more palatable for the general public.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Adam's saying, and I'd say there's been a lot of issues that have been I guess an issue in the sector for years pre-pandemic. The pandemic just exacerbated them and like Adam said, brought them into the public eye. Recruitment is obviously a key one that every care provider is facing, because it's number one, how do you encourage people from out of sector to come work in a sector that they don't really know anything about and that there's a lot of misconceptions about? And then once they're in the sector and once they're in your individual provider, how do you retain them? How do you give them the support that they need? Because collectively across the sector, I think burnout is just a huge issue. So there's, I guess, some of the challenges, but I think some of the positives of being a provider at the moment is the amount of heart and care that you see in all of our teams. We ran staff surveys a couple of weeks ago, and obviously they had areas that they wanted to discuss, suggestions for improvement. But what was really lovely to see is just how every single person was responding with one of their favorite things. It's the amount of time they get to spend with residents, or the impact that they can have on someone's day, making someone's life better, their day better. So I thought that was really heartening to see. And I think collectively across the sector, there's just a lot more community that's being built. Like, more providers are talking to each other, managers are talking to each other. They're providing that support to each other, that kind of peer-based support. And there's like a genuine enthusiasm for innovation and change. And maybe because I've only been in the sector for the last 4 years, maybe I just didn't see it before. But for me, it feels like this is one of the newer things. Beforehand, everyone was in their individual silos, whereas now everyone is talking to each other and talking about how they can make change happen.
Yeah, you're a part of a group that I'm also a part of, the Social Care Innovators Network, and you're doing some wonderful work around a people plan for social care. Can you say just a few words about that?
Yeah, I think the rest of my co-chairs might kill me if I don't actually say anything about it. So the people plan is a consultation that was done with the sector for the sector last year, but it was never intended to just be a report that sits on a shelf. It was always intended to be a dynamic movement. And so what we did was we asked everyone in the sector that we possibly could over 3 months, what are their opinions on the current status of the 5 main issues of public image, recruitment, retention and wellbeing, pay and benefits, and training, and then what positive examples do they have of, like, good care, good or outstanding examples of those particular issues, or how others that they or they themselves are doing to address them, and then what are their recommendations for the future. So that people plan was launched at the House of Lords in March earlier this year. It's the consultation for this year's set is now up and live. There is a survey link which can be found at www.ihm.org.uk/peopleplan. There's 5 new areas, and I don't want to take up too much time talking about the people plan, but essentially we just want everyone's voices to be heard. So whether that's someone who works in care, someone who is receiving care, someone who is an advocate for those who receive care, each and everyone's voices should be included.
We'll definitely share that link in the notes for the show. Yeah, absolutely.
Given your care provider background, has technology played any role in last 2 years? And going forward, what do you think?
As an operator, of course, we're embracing technology in a number of ways. But one of the things that I'm happy to hold my hands up and sort of talk about is the mistakes that we made in technology, because it's very easy to go, oh, there's an app for that, and we have a bit of a joke about this in our business. It's like, oh, and you end up with so much that actually it becomes counterintuitive and counterproductive for your teams. And it's about striking a balance between what's right for everybody and how it can actually effectively use. So sometimes I think it's just, you can't just say technology and innovation is going to solve the problem. You have to look at what technologies and how they integrate appropriately into your organization. And, I know this is a podcast about technology, but I'd be annoyed at myself if I didn't mention it. But I actually think one of the problems in our sector is that there's just too many people trying to solve little problems within the industry, which means nobody, and the excuse I always get given is that, oh, wow, well, this is, we're good at fixing this little bit of the problem, so we're going to create an app and a system that does that. My argument to that is, well, we've got devices in all of our homes and we model them, and we've got, an intranet, and we've got like Teams platforms where each home knows what they need, and they've got all their folders, their files, and everything like that. And on their phone, they've got an app for their, care planning, their medication. They've got app for the phone system. It's all integrated, all that sort of stuff. But the more you keep bolting onto that, the kind of it glazes over. So I think there's got to be a balance between, you've really got to go to the core of your business and say, which technology is that's going to advance us and how are we going to do that? And we started as with one, and we went, right, where do we start and how do we set the mantra for that? And that was around our rostering payroll. And we went down that route first. And I think that really helped, because we use that for a lot more than just rostering and payroll. We use it for, we have a shift swap thing in our business, for example, which allows people to go off whenever they want. If they want to go out with their friend's 21st birthday on a Saturday night, they can go, as long as they do a shift swap, cover it, and then we pay a bonus to the person that covers it. And you get rid of sickness, you get rid of people calling in just to go out, you get rid of the disciplinary problem because you're not having to look on Facebook and find out somebody's gone out when they should have been coming to work and they said they were sick. Yeah, tiny little things, but it's about how you utilize that system in your business environment, and then you build on it. But then comes into the recruitment challenge that I always use the phrase, you've got to make care cool. So how are we going to attract people into the sector that have never worked in the sector before? So technology is a way of doing that. Is it making the job more accessible, making the roles more innovative and interesting in terms of like applications that they can use to integrate and experience what they do, younger people are using their day-to-day life, and how they can link that into, certainly in our world of elderly, is trying to bridge that gap between a 20-year-old and an 80-year-old. How do we do that? And the technology is a great tool for doing that with sort of video learning, YouTube, because you'll be amazed at how many people in a care home might be talking about a lived experience that they've had in the 1950s, and a 20-year-old ain't got a clue what I'm talking about. I was having a really weird conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago who didn't even know who David Beckham was, and that's when I was starting to go, oh dear, now I am old, because I know who he is. I'm just a bit kind of like, is he a footballer? Yeah, see, this is kind of where you've got this thing. Didn't know him that he was a footballer. So I think it's kind of, those are the interesting things around technology, and how I think we're using them more to engage and become something that can solve problems, rather than it being, oh, I've gone to a trade show, that looks really cool, that's going to solve all of our problems, and let's implement it, because it just does not work like that, because systems aren't, and technology isn't used like that. So I think that's the mistakes we made at the start, thinking, oh, an app will fix it, but it's not. We went to the core of the business to make those challenges, but tech is solving a lot of problems for us.
Yeah, a similar situation for us as well. So we've had some successes, we've definitely made some mistakes. I think it's very easy to go to a trade show or to get the various cold emails that you get, or contacts on LinkedIn, and there's like, this product looks cool, and that app looks cool, that software looks cool. But I think the core thing is what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to achieve, for example, better outcomes for residents? Are you trying to improve their quality of life? Are you trying to achieve a situation for the teams where they actually get time back? Are you trying to automate certain things? And I think with technology, there's generally, like, there might be some people who are scared of it because they think of it as this big, scary, complex thing, and they're thinking of like machine learning or AIs. But technology can also be something as simple as, do you have shared drives in your like in your homes, or in your as a provider? Are you automating some of your emails? Are you able to automate basic tasks like, whether a template is available or not? So technology isn't just the big complex things. And I think the biggest issue that we also find is that there's so many people who are providing, like Adam said, really niche products, and then they don't talk to each other. So I don't want 20 systems that all do 20 different things, but then they're not able to talk to each other. And I think what we're finding is that newer suppliers, or the ones who've been a lot more innovative in the last couple of years, they are realizing that, and they're realizing they have to collaborate with other suppliers. So they have things like open APIs, which is a phrase I didn't know about 2 years ago. Now it's one of the key things that I ask about when every time we speak to a supplier, and we say, how can we integrate you with our system? And I think the next step after technology is that at its heart, it's always about the people. So what are you doing as a provider to make sure that they are receiving the comms in the onboarding process, in the implementation process? Like, do they understand what you're trying to achieve, why you're trying to achieve it, how it will benefit them? You can have the greatest software in the world, but if no one ever uses it, it's a waste of time and it's a waste of money. And what we've tried to do is, I think the biggest barrier for providers as a whole is time. Like, there's so much time that has to be put into implementing a system, onboarding it, figuring out all the teething issues, then rolling it out. And I think a lot of that people just don't realize. Like, as a senior team, we try to absorb as much of that as much as we can, so that the managers and the frontline teams can concentrate on other aspects of it. But we don't do it in complete isolation. We try to make sure that there's always constant feedback coming in. Like, does this work? Is this not working? What are your recommendations? Because we'll have feedback come back and it'll be a minor tweak that you haven't personally thought of, but it makes such a massive difference to, say, a frontline carer or to the manager. So I guess co-production is a key aspect, time co-production, and that's with both depending on which software you're using, with the teams who are going to be implementing it, but also with the residents and their families who might potentially be using it.
It's also a cost, isn't it? It's finding that return on investment, because if this seems to be pretty generic, that most systems tend to either have a user license or a monthly subscription per user that you'd cut, and they're all that's the kind of business model, isn't it, of all of this stuff. And that it's pretty high margin stuff. So it's a fact. If you ask any sort of startup tech, they know that the margins in that subscription model. If you add that up by 15, 16 systems, and you've got a monthly subscription, and you've got, I don't know, similar to yourself, Jasmeet, with a number of homes, you kind of start adding that up on a monthly basis, and it just doesn't become cost effective. Because you can end up spending sort of £300-400 times 15, 16 times a number of care homes, and you start looking at it and going, actually, that's outside of your standard. If you're using Office 365 or Google Chrome, Google Workspace, you've got subscriptions for that. Then you've got your phone, and you add everything up, and you've got to go, yeah, technology's great, but if I'm spending £450,000 a year on it, am I getting an ROI on £450,000 that I could be doing in a different way? So you can just get really, really carried away with it. And I think it's finding something that meets what you need in terms of how you're doing it. I think it's really the most important advice that I could ever give to anybody that's ever going on a tech journey, is to be a little bit more pragmatic about, and not just buy anything, because it's just, some of them just don't work. We had a system in place, and I got an external company to come in and do an analysis of the usage at one of our homes. It was a 46-bed home in the southeast. And they gave me a utilization report, and it was 12% utilization of the software.
Oh, wow.
And it was costing us, I think it was £400 a month. I mean, but it was still, you kind of like, well, it's been implemented, but it's no use. Obviously, as a responsibility is us as a provider to go, our implementation methodology was wrong. We didn't get buy-in. We didn't do those things right. So but it taught us a valuable lesson that is it solving a problem? Actually, no, it's just me paying for something. It's not really working. And you have to get that constant discussion between team members. And another thing that I think around technology is engaging your people at a user involvement level, is making sure that the people who are actually using the software make decisions on it. I mean, I make zero decisions about technology in our business to a degree, and I've had this conversation with Morton a number of times. It's like, I'm the worst person to talk to at a trade show, because I'll go, great, here's the name of one of my manager, and here is we've got 5 people across the group who are all kind of like technology champions, and they're the ones that they then do the presentations, and somebody comes in and they present it to them. They don't do it to me. And then they show them how to use it, and then they whittle it down, and then they bring the price to me. That's kind of how it goes, because I literally don't use them. I don't use any of the systems, because I have board meetings and discussions where people bring the data and we share it and we talk about it. I do not sit there with the dashboard up on my laptop looking at what's going on the care planning, or what's going on with our meds, or because somebody is doing that and then auditing and bringing that reporting to us, and we use a reporting tool for that to bring it together. But it's that balancing act as well, about not being the all-seeing eye and saying, this technology looks absolutely amazing, I've made that mistake, this is brilliant, and then everyone goes, but you're just trying to shoehorn it in. Because nobody further down, well, I say further down, it's a wrong phrase, but I mean, people within the operational part of the organization are the people that are actually using it. If you just throw a system at them and say, use this, it's just, you're starting from a false start immediately.
Yeah, 100% agree. There's a TED talk I listened to a while back, and it was talking about the utilization of new software, and it's exactly the same issue. And they were like, you need to treat any new software like as if it's a new employee. So give it an induction process. I'll share the link with it afterwards, because it's really interesting. We try to implement that as much as we can within our RCH. But sorry, I've lost my train of thought. I agree that there are so many products out there, and every provider will have a unique need. And so when you're speaking to the suppliers, they'll say, we can fix all of your issues with this, and we can fix all of your issues with that. And it's like Adam's saying, you need to figure out what you as an individual provider would need. I think the best advice I would give, which I wish I'd been told a few years back, is really drill down into the customer support option. So if they say they're going to provide customer support to you and they're going to help you in the onboarding phase and in the implementation phase, then drill down into that and speak to other providers who have also used that system to see if they actually say and do what they say they're going to do. Because we've had, I won't name names, but we've had systems before who've told us, oh, it only requires, let's say, a couple of hours of the senior team or the manager's time to get it set up, and we'll do everything else, and it will just be built for you. And it's not been true. But we've then also had it where suppliers have said to us, right, it's going to take, for example, 12 hours off your time every single week for 3 months, and this is what the achievement will be. At the end of it, we'll have weekly feedback sessions, progress sessions, etc. And I think sometimes suppliers are like, oh, if we tell them that we will do all of it and it's not going to take up too much of their time, it's a better sell for them. But in reality, I would rather a supplier be honest and say, this is going to take up X amount of your time. This is the resources that you will need to provide as the provider. These are the resources we'll provide. And yeah, just make sure they've got a really good customer support package. The systems that have been most successful for us, whether that is on a individual home scale or on a group wide scale, it's all been ones which have had really good customer support, where you can call them up or email them, you've got a good relationship with them, and they will help you with any teething issues that you have. And if you are in a position where you have more than one home, definitely pilot before you roll out to the whole group.
There's some really good advice there. And I was speaking to Jane Townsend, CEO of the Home Care Association, and she's very right in saying that over time, the software solving a particular problem in any sector, and for us, of course, that's social care, the software will learn from each other, feature requests will roll in, and thereby you'll make sure that you cover quite a lot of the same things. So over time, what will win a customer is your service. So I'm really happy that you both put emphasis on customer support and the whole journey from not having a system to being live with the system, and how that customer success really, that concept looks, because that is a great tip, not only for other providers listening in, but also for suppliers. Make sure to invest in your customer success before you invest in.
Well, a lot of people have that job title, don't they? Client success manager or customer success manager. It seems to be like the key thing. No, and Jasmeet's absolutely spot on. It's just, if you can't build a relationship with the way that you implement. One of my pet hates with tech, I'm going to throw it out there now to any providers that operate, the suppliers that are listening, is I can't stand it when they say there's a YouTube video for that. I'm going, I don't want a YouTube video. I want somebody to explain to me how to do it. You built it, tell me how it works. Don't send me a YouTube video, because my team aren't going to watch it. It's not, we're not 16 sat in our bedrooms with time to do that and play FIFA or whatever, Call of Duty. We want you to tell us. We're paying you X amount of thousands of pounds. And another thing that really bugs me is contracts. Can't stand it. If somebody says to me, puts it down and says it's a 3-year contract, I'm up and off straight away, because I won't sign contracts anymore. Because for me, you shouldn't have to sign a contract, because the relationship is that strong that you don't want to leave. And that should be something that's really powerful. As soon as somebody starts talking to me about a contract length, like I said, I'm out. But I love it when people go, we don't have contract terms, because we just see how it goes. There's a notice period, of course, because you've got to do your things, and once you're tied in. But that shows me that an organisation has a belief in the product and the service that they're delivering, that people aren't going to leave. They believe in it. And they also believe if somebody does need to go, it's something they need to work on and not the customer. And I had a challenging experience with this only last year on something. And it was very interesting to see how that relationship soured very quickly, and how it was, became quite fractious, down to, you felt that you started to see things dissipate in that contract term, which you didn't feel that you'd signed up for. And that's a long time for an operator to be, not wanting to do something. It shouldn't, as soon as you're in that place. Whereas I think it keeps each other honest. Contracts like that keep each other honest, because as a provider, you've got to do your bit to get it working. And the other side, I think, if you've got 5-year ones are the worst. 5 years, I've just got 5 years, really? All you're doing is satisfying your income as an organisation. So you're saying to yourselves, I've got income for 5 years. Well, what you should be saying is, I'm going to keep this income for 5 years by doing a good job. And that's, I think you're seeing the world shift because of that. They're still out there, but my preference is always to, obviously, a year maybe we could do, but I think 3 and 5 contracts are dead, really.
And specifically in our sector, which is more of a people sector, you can't be basing your relationship on papers. It's that human touch point.
But that's
Absolutely.
exactly it. Our entire sector is a people sector, that the people who come and work in social care, by and large, they have a call to care. Like, they care about people, they care about building relationships. So that relationship becomes so important, and the partnership is important. I think that also from a provider perspective, if you have a good partnership and relationship with individual suppliers, what it means is that you can then make whatever system or model or software it is work for you, and you can make it more bespoke to you. So if, like, for the people who that we partner with and who we're having really great success with, we'll drop them an email and say, this doesn't quite work the way that we wanted to. Is there something that can be done? Or, like, we're missing that, this final aspect of the report isn't coming through. Can you pull the data together so that we can see this? And it's all little things like that, but it makes your life so much easier. And it from what they said, tell us, it doesn't require too much effort on their part. I'm not saying have massive changes to a system, but if you have that good relationship, then you can ask those questions. And often they will say, we hadn't thought of it from that perspective, because obviously we're not the provider. So there are things that you are going to need that we hope that we've tried to achieve, but we've never actually considered. And I think that kind of brings me on to my next point, that tech is a really great opportunity to become an equalizer within society, but it really needs to be careful to not leave people behind. Now, whether that's because some people are not as quite like tech savvy, or they're a bit tech averse, or if that's in the literal data sets that are being used to build the software. It there's a book and a podcast that I would recommend to everyone, and to definitely any supplier. Before you build anything, read Invisible Women by Carolina Criada Perez. And if you are building anything, then again, listen to there's an episode in a podcast called Femtech Focus, which talks about tech equity, and it's making sure that you're not missing out certain demographics. Now, whether those demographics are part of your user group, like your end user group, the people who are going to be, I guess, rolling out the product, the people who are going to be looking at the reports. Those are the two biggest ones to make sure that you don't leave people behind.
This is awesome, isn't it, Morten? So much, not only for our listeners, but also for us who are, the innovator suppliers into the sector.
Yeah, it's quite fantastic to hear that you both also feel disengaged about how you work with suppliers in general. And I'm guessing it's not only tech suppliers, but it really comes in handy also when you work with a software as a service company, that you take that model, but you also take all of that model as a supplier. You don't want to keep the old solution selling model where you lock down your customers for 5 years, when you're actually learning from consumerism and taking over like the £10 a month for doing stuff. Then also have the notice 30 days. You have to take the best from that world and make it come alive for providers also. I think there is a lot in this talk here today for both suppliers and providers to learn.
Can I add one extra thing? For any suppliers that are listening, can you please create visuals or videos or comms for what your product is, like really quick snapshots that you can then share with frontline teams, because they're the ones who are going to be using it. And often when we have the demos, it's pitched out like, management and above level. So this is a really good reporting functionality, this does this. And then we ask, okay, well, when we're onboarding or when we're implementing and rolling out, we obviously need to be communicating with our teams, and we want them to understand the benefits that that particular tech is going to employ. And often we have to create our own visuals, whether that's a video, whether it's a poster, like whatever it is, we have to create it, because nothing exists, or what does exist is so bland, and it just it makes you not engage with that tech at all. So yeah, if you can create some comms in advance, that would be ideal.
Very good way of finishing this session with a proper recommendation for all suppliers out there. Have some really cool videos made that you can share
It
with.
doesn't have to be a video, it just needs to be some form of communication for the end user.
Point taken. I don't know if we have that. I'll have to get back to you and learn some more about that, Jasmeet.
Anytime. I think it's the biggest thing in terms of what succeeds and what fails. Like, if your teams will get on board with it, is have you communicated it well enough to them? And you know, we've made mistakes, but we've also had success with that. So
That made me just think about the coolest, probably sales meeting we've had within the last couple of months was with an entire organization, and even the people drawing on their services, a whole committee of people, which was quite an experience. And the feedback that got back from that was, of course, stuffed with learning for us as well. Adam, Jasmeet, thank you both for joining us today. It was wonderful to hear from your experience.
thank you so much for inviting us.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, review, and share your favorite Take Care podcast with your friends and colleagues. Until we meet next week, take care.